The Mayo Experience.
Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience, Week 10 waiver wire pickups, NFL recap, some injuries, and then, after we finish that, your viewer questions today. We're not taking start sits unless it pertains to the Monday Nighter, but if you got showdown questions, you got trade questions, add drop questions, we'll definitely be taking those. Remember to smash the like button, and if you go to the comment section of the YouTube video, you'll find all of the audio links as well. And even if you're just a YouTube watcher, please go subscribe to the Pat Mayo Experience audio podcast. We're in the race to get to 10 million listens/downloads for the year, so you don't even need to go listen to it on the audio. Just go download it from the audio version. Boom. We're fine on that regard. You just go help out the show, just like giving the likes. And if you want to get into a draw for 20 DK dollars, here's what you do. Again, give the episode a like, step one. Step two, leave your DK handle in the comment section, not the live chat, in the comment section, so I can see it after the fact, and tell me which defense you would like to stream that is less than 60% owned this week for Week 10. The Chargers are actually a pretty decent one to pick up for like the next 3 weeks. They have 3 sweet matchups in a row, and hopefully Joey Bosa comes back. So it could be them. It could be someone else. If you just want to play someone for this week, that's how you get into a draw for 20 DK dollars. And I should reveal who the 20 DK dollar winners were from last week. We got Jane Mill, Lindsay 313, Sahil.Meta, JRob1231, T Money 88, and Dale Grissom. Your names have been sent up to the proper people. Hopefully, soon enough, you will have an extra 20 DK dollars in your DraftKings account. Joining me to break everything down this week, and if you hit the description, you can find the pickup rankings in the snap shares to follow along if you want to go do that. It's Ben Rasa from Awesemo.com. Ben, do you play in any season-long leagues? I'm very curious.
I do not. No, this is certainly not my arena. I'm excited to jump into it, though.
Well, what I really wanted to do this week, Meanie was in Cleveland this week, so I thought, you know what? Meanie and I talk about this stuff every week. It's good to get an outsider's perspective on it because it's not like you don't understand how season long works. It's just all you do is play DFS.
This is true. Yeah, just never into season long, but yeah, a lot of similar stuff. So it'll be interesting.
Well, I just want to get your gauge on these players moving forward because you might see things that we're not seeing as it pertains to, you don't want any part of that guy. He's not good, and we're trying to make talking points for them moving forward. So I want to get into the injuries from the running backs to kick things off. There weren't a ton of really big ones. I guess Sony Michel not playing in the Sunday night game with a knee injury would be the biggest. He was very close to playing this week. I would expect him back in Week 11, so I'm not too concerned on his front. Chris Carson exited the game with a hip injury. He's someone to watch out for moving forward. He's had this problem before. Back in Week 4, he didn't start for that game. He got into the game this time around, only played a few snaps, then he didn't play at all in the second half, leaving the door open for Mike Davis. Donta Foreman with the Texans on bye is expected to return to practice finally. This is supposed to happen like 3 weeks ago, but it didn't, so keep monitoring him. Gio Bernard should be back following the bye week. Chris Thompson missed Week 9. He's questionable for Week 10. Leonard Fournette is expected to return after the bye this week, Week 10. So Leonard Fournette owners, if you're still in it, there you go. Same goes for Darren Sproles to add more confusion to that Eagles backfield. He should return. Chris Ivory exited the game against the Bears. He was taken to the hospital. No word on the extent of his shoulder injury yet. I'm guessing he's not going to be playing this week. Raheem Mostert broke his arm. He's out for the season. Le'Veon Bell, no word on whether he's coming back yet or not. Still has yet to report as the time that we're recording this. The Broncos are on bye Week 10, so Royce Freeman should return after that. Ronald Jones has a hamstring injury. No word yet on whether he's going to play, but we've seen these injuries. Hamstring injuries in particular plague running back, so he'll probably be out. And Peyton Barber tweaked his ankle late in the game against Carolina, but he remained in. We'll see if it perpetuates itself during the week. Just keep an eye on that. If not, Jaquiz Rogers would become the pickup in that spot. So the actual rankings for waiver wire pickups in Week 10. If we go to the very top, turns out all you needed to get Hugh Johnson and Todd Haley out of the picture, and Duke Johnson's good again. Yeah, all those snaps that he was playing finally filtered into fantasy points. He's number one. Mike Davis, because of that injury, and we saw the role that he can play if there is no Carson. He played a massive percent of the snap share this week. It was kind of crazy. Like, that's what you would expect, and I mean, Penny got worse worked in a little bit. But it was the Mike Davis show on the ground and through the air all throughout the last 3 quarters of the Seattle game. He played 73% of the snaps this week. Elijah McGuire, Wendell Smallwood, Jalen Richard, Royce Freeman, Josh Adams, Derrick Henry, Jamal Williams, Spencer Ware are all the guys that are up there. You have your handcuffed here with the Wares, the Geos, the Malcolm Browns, Ito Smith, Chase Edmonds. If you need to go do it, it depends on your team needs. I suppose if you need a running back, you can go take the guys near the top. If you need someone to plug and play. If not, I actually kind of prefer the handcuff. So what do you make of Duke Johnson here, Ben? Is this something that we're going to see moving forward for the rest of the season if they get in bad game scripts that, hey, Duke Johnson's going to play 55% of the snaps and he's actually going to get 9 targets a game, which we wanted from Duke all along. Now it's happening. Or do you think this is a 1-week blip?
No, I think it's here to stay. I mean, he had been playing decent snaps. The targets weren't there. It's the first game after the regime change. And this is what they should have been doing the entire time. I was on Duke Johnson throughout the year, hadn't been working. It was good to see him involved. I think he stays involved. Obviously, in the short term, they have Atlanta next week. You couldn't ask for a better matchup there. They've just been horrendous all year across the board. But yeah, I expect, when they're a positive game script, Chubb to get, he's going to get the carries, of course. But if they fall behind, Duke is going to be the guy. And even in, pretty standard games, he's definitely going to get some targets.
So as it pertains to Nick Chubb, I described him on yesterday's Sunday morning show that I do live every Sunday, 10 a.m. Eastern time. Same format here on the DraftKings YouTube channel. We do the viewer chat. We do the breakdown of the games. But I described Nick Chubb as basically discount Adrian Peterson as it pertained to DraftKings. They do exactly the same thing. It's just one of them's Adrian Peterson and the other one's Nick Chubb. So Nick Chubb gets a discount.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, they're touchdown dependent, not going to give you much in the passing game. The volume is there, though. Chubb, another 22 carries yesterday. That's exciting, but it was Duke Johnson's long overdue to be an integral part of that offense. They need him on the field. He's obviously an asset, as you saw, and I expect that moving forward.
Yeah, and as we look at the snap shares from yesterday between the two, it was pretty dead even, to tell you the truth. And there were some times where they were both on the field at the same time. Chubb played 49% of the snaps. The Duke Silver, hi-ho Duke, played 47% of the snaps. So I'm in on Duke moving forward. It sucks. In terms of full point PPR, you need to have him. In standard leagues, you probably don't. And then you get into like Mike Davis. He's a bit of a handcuff because you can't really play him if Chris Carson starts, but Chris Carson's just been wildly banged up all year, like the hip, and like they're saying this is like a thigh or a groin problem. There's no guarantee that he's going to play next week. So if we get news like that comes out, because I update these rankings after Monday Night Football, then all throughout Tuesday that Chris Carson is fine, then Mike Davis would bump down a little bit. But your mighty Jets, Ben, Elijah McGuire returns, directly inserted into the Bilal Powell role. And this is weird because he played way more than Isaiah Crowell yesterday, but it's not like that game was at a hand. They were losing, but not by much because no one was scoring points.
Yeah, no, it was just neither team was good enough to get it out of hand. Obviously, Darnold was horrendously bad. What can you say about that? But Elijah McGuire is a guy I've been waiting for him to get back. I thought he would be a good part of this offense. Obviously, with Powell not there, that's going to really help him. The question is just going to be, what can he do? Is he going to give you anything in the carries? He got a couple, yesterday, I think it was 7. Not bad. Obviously, in the passing game, just like Duke Johnson, he's going to be an asset. He's electric. They need help. They need to get Darnold weapons, certainly on the outside. The receivers are a little healthier now with the Nunwa and Robbie Anderson, but I expect Elijah McGuire to carve out a nice role for himself, and he certainly has upside every week.
Yeah, I think that he's someone who's going to, depending on game script, play between like 40 and 60% of the snaps, 60 on the high end. He'll vulture a goal line touch or two just by osmosis of being on the field, like we saw Bilal Powell, but Crowell's going to be their back. Like they get Buffalo this week. That sounds like more of a Crowell game than a McGuire game. But I've heard some new excuses about I was calling safe space Sam for a while now because he gets too triggered and then he throws picks. But I think it's kind of easy now that we're just going to call him Darn Sanchez because he's terrible.
Yeah, it's not good. I mean, I'm as much as I like the Jets, I'm a Josh Allen guy. So him just resting, being hurt, he's vaulting up the rankings here with Baker and Darnold not looking too hot.
I usually just do it to troll Tim on the Wednesday show, but I feel like this is a part of the Jets process that they didn't actually like any of the quarterbacks in this draft, so they drafted Darnold to tank again so they can draft another quarterback.
Sharp. Yeah, process of maybe they'll get the guy from Oregon. It's it's frustrating. Obviously, he was just you can't be throwing 4 picks in a game, but they should have just took Josh Allen, who nobody likes. That is my man. I know he has the worst situation of all. That's going to be next week, Buffalo Jets. That could be really special in terms of inept offenses.
Well, especially if you don't have Chris Ivory. Hopefully Josh Allen gets back in that game because that would actually be kind of fun. Eventually he has to return, I would think. If
I was him, I would try to delay that as long as possible because this team, the sad part about the Bills is their defense is actually pretty solid. They put up a fight. They just have no chance between the turnovers and the amount of time they're on the field. Hard to rely on anyone from Buffalo's offense at this point.
Well, I had taken the Bills and the points yesterday. I was like, well, the Bears offense isn't all that good, and the Bills defense is good. And then I totally spaced on, Peterman's going to throw a pick 6. I didn't anticipate Kroom fumbling 6. And then they're just down by 20. It's like, oh, well, this is over.
Yep. Yeah, I took the 10-2s. I figured they could keep it close. And it's like, if they're going to give up turnovers, let it be Peterman. Like fumbles by the backup tight end that's just not in the script. They cannot handle that. And then obviously the game just got out of control pretty fast.
One of the most confusing backfields in all of football, the Eagles backfield, now looks like it's going to get an injection of Darren Sproles coming back. So we have Wendell Smallwood, Josh Adams, Corey Clement, and Darren Sproles. All 4 of these guys are eligible to be picked up in most leagues. The majority of leagues, these guys are completely available. I'm struggling with, A, who I want out of these guys, if they're all available, and B, do I actually want any of them? I know Josh Adams is getting a lot of buzz right now because he looked good towards the end of the Week 8 game, but it seems like this is going to flip on a dime, and you're never going to know who to start, that it might just be best not to have any of them.
Honestly, that's my first thought on it. Josh Adams right now, he's trending upward. Clement looks ineffective. Sproles will come back. You have Smallwood. It's going to be a situation, though. I think you're going to see it interchangeable throughout the year. They're going to ride the hot hand within games. If one guy gets it going, they're going to lean on him. They're all going to get some work in each game, and it cannibalizes it so much. You really have to wonder how big is the upside unless one of these guys takes a stranglehold on the job, which I don't see happening. How much is the upside each week when you have, running back by committee like that?
It is. And everyone's sort of turning to Josh Adams because that's the thing that was in everyone's mind when they played Jacksonville, that, he looked really good. He's a big body. He's a bruiser. He's LeGarrette Blount. But were people starting LeGarrette Blount last year? No. So yeah. It just seems like a headache, honest to God. You might just be better off passing on. I would prefer Smallwood of all of them. He seems to be the one week after week after week. He's not getting the majority of the touches, but most weeks he's getting the plurality of the touches, and that's, I guess, good enough to make you the best in this backfield.
I mean, he has, I think, the most, as crazy as it sounds, the most secure role. I see no way where he's not involved in kind of some capacity. Can he extend it a little? But he's never going to be the feature back at the same time. He's not built to handle, a super workload, and they don't want that. They have enough guys, whether it's Adams, whether it's Clement, whether it's Sproles, to mix and match. But even with him, I'm with you. I think he's the best of the bunch, and I don't feel too comfortable with him.
So in a very positive game script, I do want to let everyone know the odds and lines are subject to change. See website for actual odds. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-GAMBLER. But I gave it out last week. I did some hits for NBC Philadelphia, for SNY. I said it on the show, on the spread picks, that the Eagles plus 175 to win the division coming into last week was probably my favorite future bet that was on the board, only because I didn't think Washington was great. They could win games, but Philly still gets 2 cracks at them. And just to win that division, I think that they're going to be looking a lot better. That when we saw them play against Jacksonville, 50% of the snaps go to Smallwood, 29 for Adams. If Adams is never going to get over 50%, and he's someone who's not going to be on the field during basically any passing down, I just don't see where the value comes in. You have to anticipate Philly. I think they're going to be better coming out of the bye, but I don't think they're going to be Philly from last year. And now you get Golden Tate in that mix too, just to add another body into the mix, and then with Sproles coming back, that I think I'm just going to pass on all these guys.
Yeah, no, it's an unnecessary headache, and it's hard enough. We talk about this a lot in DFS. I feel like you have to get it kind of right twice. Not only does he have to play well, but he has to be on the field enough. And that's just, it's a really small window you have when a guy's not going to be, prevalent throughout the offense. He's game script dependent. A lot of hurdles you have to clear just to have an opportunity to get paid off.
So I have Jalen Richard at number 5. These are PPR rankings. You can just play when it comes to this week. Is Oakland on the main slate? They are, right?
Yeah, sadly they are.
Yeah, they played the Chargers this week at home. I feel like you can get 5 to 8 catches out of Richard every week.
Well, their game script shouldn't be too hard to figure out because that had to be the worst performance of the year on Thursday. That was real bad. Yeah, I mean, that's what they should be doing. He's going to get some looks. The rest of that team, I don't know what to say. I'm still tilted from Martavis Bryant playing 7 snaps 2 weeks ago. Very frustrating, but Jalen Richard, you would have to figure is going to be involved regardless of what they do. And in PPR sites, he can just rack up so many quick catches. They're easy throws for Carr. Definitely an asset. And
he lives in the Derek Carr ADOT range of -4.
Yeah, it has to be. They're all laterals at this point. He can't be throwing downfield. It's just John Gruden, man. But what can you say? This is not going to be a good matchup. But at the same time, you think Chargers are going to be able to put some heat on Carr, and that honestly should make Richard even more valuable because he's just not going to have time to take shots even if he wanted to.
Yeah, so the other guys like Royce Freeman is now available in more than 60% of leagues. If he comes back after the bye, you have Booker, who even with the fumble, they still seem content on using. Then he poached that touchdown from Phillip Lindsay. It very firmly seems like Phillip Lindsay's job, but I'm kind of surprised they haven't turned over the keys to him all the way with Freeman out to do most of this work on the ground. Phillip Lindsay seems like a very viable pass catcher too, that it seems strange that Devontae Booker keeps getting so much work that when Freeman comes back, do you think that they return to a 40-40-20 three-way split?
Seems like that's what they want to do. I'm with you. I thought the most telling thing was in a game like yesterday, it was basically 60-40. And I didn't think that would be the case. I thought that Royce Freeman, when he's involved, I get it, but it seems like they have a blueprint and that's what they want to do regardless of the personnel. When Freeman comes back, he's going to be, he's not going to be the lead guy, obviously, but it seems more like a kind of like an Eagles light situation where you're going to have a handful of guys there getting touches and they're not going to be afraid to ride the hot hand. So I don't mind it, but it's a tricky situation when your volume's not secure within a game.
So I'm going to move Richard above Wendell Smallwood here just because of consistent performance. So he'll be number 4. Wendell Smallwood will be number 5. I'll keep Freeman at 6. I think Freeman is more likely to get a lot of the goal line work, but I do think that if one of the Eagles guys does at least play 50% of the snaps, it's probably going to be Smallwood. And I don't know if I can say that about Freeman even after he returns. So I'll keep Freeman behind him. Out of the handcuffs, you got I guess we'll start with Derrick Henry, and the only reason I have him at number 8 is because he still plays. He's not an absolute handcuff like your Spencer Wares or your Malcolm Browns, and even Gio Bernard's to this extent for when Joe Mixon's healthy. Bernard doesn't see the field that much, although we know that when Mixon is out, Gio Bernard's an absolute smash play every single week. He's a top 10 dude. Do you think Spencer Ware is the best handcuff, or would you think it's Malcolm Brown? Because I worry that John Kelly comes in if Gurley ever gets hurt, and then it's now it's a bit of a split.
No, I would go to Spencer Ware as well. Malcolm Brown, he did have an amazing play yesterday, but I don't think that it's just if something happened to Gurley, it would become his backfield. Whereas Spencer Ware, I think, would be a more seamless transition. He can slide in kind of behind Hunt, and if something happens, I think he would step up. And that offense is so high-powered. Not that it's plug and play, but it's close enough with Mahomes and all them that I think that would be kind of the guy I'd want to target as a handcuff.
Before we get on to receivers, I do want to give a special shout out to anyone who's watching that hasn't dabbled in the realm of fantasy golf. And this is how Ben and I became friends to begin with. That we both love golf. We love playing DraftKings golf. That FantasyNational.com smashed yesterday. I was in second place in the $5. I opened it. I knew I was inside the top 50, and then I opened up my DraftKings app after it went down for a little bit. Also, people if the DraftKings app goes down for 10 minutes to begin the games after lock happens, you can cease the freakouts. People were asking me, it's weird. And here's where you have an edge on DraftKings, always. That I received 3 separate emails, serious emails, asking me why I haven't fixed the DraftKings app yet. So people think that there are people that play on DraftKings who potentially watch this show that think that I own DraftKings.
Those are the kind of people. You have my screen name here, Jazz Raz. Just send the head-to-heads my way next time it goes down. That's the kind of people you want to target. Yeah, get those screen names, Pat, and we can handle that via the head-to-heads.
I mean, I'm not even a DraftKings employee. I'm a promoter of the brand, which I enjoy very much. Play on DraftKings. But, like, it just seems so weird. Especially, like, I get you want to follow the scores, but, like, who cares 10 minutes into the NFL slate? Like, are you really sweating that, like, first touchdown? Like, oh, my God, I'm winning the Millionaire Maker.
Yeah, that's why you got to target that defense early. You get your 10 points, take that screenshot. Because, yeah, don't sweat the games from 1 to 8. That's an unhealthy habit. I can tell you from experience.
Well, what happened with me is I was checking it, and like the app was down, then it came back like 10 minutes later, and I opened it. It's like current winnings like $20,000. I was like, oh, my golfers are doing pretty well. So then I became that, like, because golf didn't become live till like 5 p.m. Eastern, that I'm just like constantly refreshing, and then like you go from 2nd to 23rd, back up to 2nd to like 20th, and then I ended up, I think, in 25th. I had a really good week, but 2 members of FantasyNational.com won the 44, won the $5. I think like total first place prizes in guaranteed prize pools for golf this week, because it was a smaller tournament, ended up being like 50,000. I think Fantasy National members won like 41,000 of them. So it's fantastic news.
Yeah. No, it was, I saw you up there. Golf sweats are the wildest. I mean, the roller coaster of how your winnings can go up and down is just, it's unlike many other DFS sports, that's for sure.
So FantasyNational.com, if you're interested in golf, it's like $7 a week or $8 a week or something like that. There's 2 tournaments left. And hey, it's been, I don't want to say easy money throughout the swing season, but it's been pretty good the past like 5 weeks or so, just cleaning up. I even put out like a betting cheat sheet on Friday for like live in play and ended up like up 25 units. It was fantastic. So great site to use. All my information is mine from there. Wide receivers, pickups of the week. I have Marquez Valdez-Scantling at number 1. I have Christian Kirk at number 2. Tyrell the Gazelle Williams, number 3. Kiki at number 4, although the Texans are on bye. He should be healthy coming out of that. Sanu, Traquan, Adam Humphries, Hump Daddy, just catching everything. John Ross, D.D. Westbrook, and DJ Moore. We think about the injuries from the wide receiver position. Like Stefan Diggs didn't play, they're on bye. He should be fine coming out because he was close. Same as Kiki, he didn't play, they're on bye. Torrey Smith probably not going to be ready to go for the Thursday night game with Carolina, so you can fire up some more DJ Moore and see how that works out for you again. Jamison Crowder missed the week. He's just been out 5 weeks now, so we'll see when he comes back. Geronimo Allison dealing with that groin, same as Allen Robinson. Allen Robinson should be back next week. Ryan Grant should return coming out of this bye week. John Ross, also with the groin injury, was close to playing before the bye week. He has the bye to recover, but AJ Green is the big one. He's awaiting word from this foot specialist, but I don't think this sounds good at all. So I think he's going to miss a few weeks or the rest of the season.
Yeah, it seems that way, and that's obviously huge. Yeah, foot specialist doesn't seem good. That's going to transform the offense for sure. Obviously, Boyd has been great, but someone's going to have to step up next to him and Mixon. Certainly going to open the door for some lesser-known guys on the Bengals side.
So I have John Ross at number 8 in these pickup rankings. I'm not super sold on John Ross, and I don't know for sure that A.J. Green is out. The other guy I have at number 13 is Josh Malone. If you had to pick between the two, do you have any particular take on them? Like, do you just go with Malone because he's 100% unowned and John Ross might still be lingering? We know what John Ross does. He's not trustworthy. That maybe all of a sudden Malone's just a guy who picks up like 6 to 9 targets every week?
Well, the thing is, John Ross is not picking up, I'd be stunned if he's the kind of guy that sees big targets. He's going to be on the field and he's an extreme burner. He's in that Travis Benjamin, Tyreek Hill-esque bucket, where it's like deep threats, only needs a couple touches. That's not the best for PPR. So I wouldn't hate rolling the dice on someone who's, like you said, 0% owned across leagues like Josh Malone. I do wonder how they divvy it up with someone like Erickson there, what they would do. Who knows if it even would be Josh Malone. So that's the situation to monitor. I think John Ross is more the volatile option. I don't see many ways he slides in and sees a ton of targets. It's more that he doesn't need that many to get it done any week.
That's the whole thing, and I think if A.J. Green isn't there, that it just increases his snap share. So he'll just be on the field more, and hopefully that translates into 1 or 2 more deep shots down the field. And this is a pretty nice matchup they have coming up this week. So I kind of like that situation a little bit. If we just look at their depth chart, you have AJ Green and Tyler Boyd. We obviously know those two. So Alex Erickson and Josh Malone be the next two up. You also have John Ross and Cody Core, who I legit like. I've never seen him play. So you played deep preseason NFL. Like, do you have insights to these guys?
I think Cody Core. I'm more thinking of college. I think Cody Core went to Ole Miss.
He did go to Ole Miss.
Okay, yeah. So I remember him from there, part of the Evan Ingram teams and whatnot. He's seen the field a little. I feel like the Bengals had used him in a jam last year a bit, but like I said, I don't see anyone really breaking out. Similar to some of the mix and match at running backs we were talking about. I think they kind of give a couple guys some different shots to hold it together. No one's, of course, replacing AJ Green, but I feel like John Ross's role, regardless, like you said, it's somewhat secure in what he does. He may be on the field a little more, and that's probably going to translate to a couple more deep shots a game, but he's just not the type of guy who can handle, 10, 12 targets, short targets. That's just not his game.
Jets receivers, any worth owning? Because it seems like Curse would be the guy because he's now back in the slot where he should be with Enunwa and Robbie Anderson on the outside. If all these guys are healthy, like Curse, and he had 9 targets yesterday. He didn't do anything with them. Stupid Jermaine Curse. But if you're going to try to mine some PPR value, it's probably him, I would think.
Yeah, I mean, besides the week where everybody owned him because he was the only receiver left, he's been getting real, hefty targets, basically double-digit looks each and every week, and he does certainly accelerate in the slot. That's where they needed to put him. They can do that now that they're a little healthier. I mean, it's not a great situation with Darnold. We know that, but he doesn't have go-to weapons, with McGuire, Herndon, we'll talk about in a bit. I don't mind that. It's certainly someone just on a volume standpoint in PPR is somewhat appealing.
If you look at the very top of the wide receiver rankings here, do you think that if it was you and all these guys were available, and I know they're not available in everyone's league, but I have to go with some sort of standard, and it's less than 60% of leagues, that Marquez Valdez-Scantling would be number one here? I feel like just tying yourself to Rodgers is a good idea. Like I initially had Christian Kirk at number one. I started thinking about it. I feel like Rosen may have turned a corner in that 49ers game. He looked really good in the second half, but it was also against the 49ers. So it's like, I don't know about this, but he's going to be involved. But I'd rather have my receiver catching balls, even in a more cluttered situation like Valdez-Scantling than Christian Kirk, who's getting like 6, 7, 8 targets a game, but he's not catching the ball because it's Josh Rosen throwing him the ball. However, it seems like even if Geronimo Allison comes back, Valdez-Scantling has kind of carved out a niche for himself in this offense.
Yeah, I think even when Allison comes back, you're going to see, I mean, last night MVS was really good. Showed some skills, made a couple really nice catches. And like you said, the quarterback situation is just the difference. Rosen's I think, besides Josh Allen, who's obviously the best of these bunch, Rosen looks like the second guy, and he's just, somewhat effective. It's still, you have David Johnson, you have Fitz, you have Kirk, who's going to be involved, but I still think the ceiling's somewhat capped, whereas MVS, even if everyone is healthy on the Packers, he's going to get some looks. And obviously, if something happens to Adams or if Cobb is hobbled again, he's ready to step up, and then he becomes, a top tier play.
And that's really the whole thing, and you can't say that about anyone else on this list. Like, even if Keenan Allen went down, for example, I don't know how much the role of Tyrell Williams would change.
No, he's another one of those guys, kind of like, I think he's certainly better than John Ross, but he does what he does, and he's not just going to be able to transform to take the place of someone like Keenan Allen if he went down.
Yeah, I'm still in on Kiki. I think that he's going to be better than Demaryius Thomas the rest of the season. I like him playing out of the slot. I think that his speed really gives him an advantage. He seems to have a rapport with Deshaun Watson already. It was funny that, I was really anti-DT yesterday. He just comes out first drive. It was like they were specifically just like, listen, we're going to get you your numbers. We're going to try to win this game. You can have your revenge on Denver, and then we're just going to throw to Hopkins the rest of the time.
Yeah, it was not a good start. The afternoon slate, before I blinked, I had the Broncos defense. I had no Demaryius. It was an ugly start there, but he's still, and we saw later in that game, he's going to be integrating into the offense for a little while. I'm with you. I think Kiki has a good role carved out. Obviously, Fuller's not walking through that door. Hopkins is always going to be the dude, but he's certainly in a PPR setting can give you some dividends.
Jags receivers, do you have a preference? Because I'm siding with Dede, I guess, if I have to have one.
I side with Dede every single week, and it never ever works. He gets some targets. I thought so many times he was going to take over this wide receiving core and really, vault to number one. And obviously Bortles isn't great, but man, has it been disappointing. I'm hoping, and this is me just trying to rationalize it, that with Fournette coming back, maybe they get more balanced and it opens it up a little. He did catch a touchdown, but man, it's been not what I thought from D.D. Westbrook. Pretty disappointed on him as a season as a whole.
Number 6, I have Traquan Smith. After him, I know he caught the touchdown yesterday, but 3 targets in that game. And I know Michael Thomas was just open every play, so just throw it to him. It's like the pass it to Will offense from Fresh Prince. But, he should be better than this, shouldn't he?
Yeah, I mean, he should be. It was disappointing yesterday. He's lucky he caught that touchdown. Obviously Benjamin Watson was getting involved. The Saints do all sorts of things. Then they got the big guns with Kamara and Michael Thomas. But Traquan was the guy, he was getting some buzz. He was owned throughout the industry. Maybe that tapers off a bit, but I don't think he's on the path that most people thought he was going when he had a couple big showings.
Final one, number 11. If there's a Raiders receiver to own, I hate to say this, but Brendan LaFell-Sexwell seems to be the guy.
At least it's not Martavis. Yeah, I mean, somehow, some way, this guy, I didn't know he was on the Raiders until I saw him catching touchdowns that should have been Martavis Bryant's. He seems to be part of this offense. They're obviously going to be trailing more weeks than not. Can catch the ball. He looks pretty good. If you're in a jam, I don't hate it, as sad as that is. Besides Cook, they really don't have, Jordy hasn't been great. Seth Roberts, it's not an ideal situation. So there's going to be targets to go around.
At tight ends, I have CJ Uzomah, Secret of the Uzomah, number 1. And this really kind of part and parcel goes with the A.J. Green injury. Like, we can talk about Josh Malone, we can talk about Erickson or John Ross or whoever. I feel like Boyd stands to gain a lot here. Maybe they start using Gio Bernard in more of a passing role and playing him and Mixon at the same time and using Gio more in the passing game. But it seems like Uzomah is just – I know the last time we saw him, he had 0 points, but I would still take my gamble on him.
I mean, he's on the field all the time. It's more, can he start getting some real target share? You would have to think that would happen if a couple options go down. Obviously, A.J. Green, that would create a huge vacuum for targets. And, red zone looks, which is probably where you're really going to get paid off with a guy like Uzomah. It's not a great situation, but one of the first things in terms of a way to justify these things is how often is he on the field? And that guy, obviously – after Eifert went down, he's just been on the field all the time.
So after him, I have Jack Doyle at number 2. And even if he's in a split with Ebron, Eric Swoop should be back this week, I think. But he's still, no matter who is hurt and who is not hurt, Andrew Luck will find some random other tight end to throw to at some point. So there's that. But I think there's enough volume in terms of Jack Doyle to go around that Uzomah or Doyle is your real conundrum. If you do need a pickup at tight end, I would just side with the potential max volume for CJ here over Doyle and the fact that Ebron is there to steal touchdowns away from him. But after that, like Herndon and Hierman and Ben Watson, I guess, are the next 3. Like Vance gets written out or it's a Jesse James game. But those next 3, Herndon seems, out of all the Jets guys, he seems to be the one whose role doesn't seem to change week to week.
Yeah, he's doing his thing. He found the end zone a couple weeks. He had another somewhat solid game in a game where they were awful last week. And I actually think that these receivers coming back kind of helps a guy like that. He's still getting his looks. Darnold seems to like him. Another team that probably going to be trailing more often than not, maybe not next week against Buffalo, but they're going to have some tough games on the docket. I don't mind it. I think, you mentioned someone like Doyle. If he can work back, he was derailed by injuries. There is a lot of mouths to feed in Indy, but that's a kind of a guy. He still should be one of Luck's favorite targets.
So do you put much stock into Hierman's big, gigantic 10-catch game yesterday, or is that purely aberrational? Or is that something to kind of buy into? Because, by the way, was there an easier fade ever than Cortland Sutton chalk?
No. Well, yeah, Jermaine Kershaw a couple weeks ago, which I bought into.
I bought into that one, too. I learned my lesson from that one.
So dumb by me. Hierman, was that an admiration? Yeah, probably. But at the same time, we saw Demaryius Thomas it opened it up. Most people thought that Sutton would benefit, and he saw some targets, of course. Sanders always going to get looks, but Howerman was the guy that really took the step and got involved. I think, Lacoste was the other tight end. He caught a ball or two, but Howerman's going to be the guy going forward. He seems like a target that Keenum can use week in and week out. So, going forward, it's not a perfect spot, but again, these are limited options down here. You don't have a ton that really stands out in terms of all systems go.
Yeah, he played 71% of the snaps yesterday. Tim Patrick actually played 73% of the snaps. The Broncos go to bye week. I would see them rejigging their offense a little bit, that they don't have to rely on a tight end who's frankly not all that good as a major part of their offense. So he's a spec pickup. But going on to bye, you don't need him this week, so you probably just leave him on the waiver wire. The Ben Watson thing is the most frustrating thing, because I like Ben Watson. I have him on best ball teams, and that's really the best place to ever have him, because you don't know week to week whether Ben Watson's going to be the 5 for 80 guy or just pure zeros.
Yeah, we've seen that. He literally got 0 against Minnesota, and that's sandwiched between 2 really good games from him. Saints have so many weapons. They spread it around. They mix and match. It's really tough. I think in a pinch, he's a good stream, because you just tie yourself to an offense that scores a lot of points. And then the downside going in that, hey, Josh Hill caught a touchdown this week. Sorry. Yeah, I mean, I'll give you that. There's plenty to go around in New Orleans. They have obviously, like you said, Josh Hill, Taysom. They got guys coming out of the woodwork to get involved. So it's not that, but I'll roll with, I was saying that about the Chiefs earlier. You want to kind of tie yourself to a team like that, whereas if you pick some guys from some of these bad teams, there's only a touchdown to go around for all of them anyway. It's really tough in terms of carving out a sizable role.
For injuries at the tight end position, Gronk obviously missed the game. What do you do with Gronk? I don't know what to do with him. Like, if you have him, you probably have to play him if he plays, but ugh.
It's bad. Yeah, I mean, and New England, obviously, A, they're super smart, and B, they're just rolling. They're not going to push him or rush him back or do anything, because they don't need to. They got guys, Cordero Patterson and the gang are just carrying the load at this point. So it's a tricky situation. He's just looked, when he's playing, he's not a huge asset, and obviously he's been banged up. It's a disappointing year, to say the least, for Gronk.
So if this goes into a situation, let's say we throw Gronk into this tight end pickup ranking pool, and you got to think about this as a guy you play every week because it's your tight end. Rest of the season, every single week from this point forward, would you rather play Gronk or CJ Uzomah?
I have to say Gronk.
I'm going to say Gronk too, but I think the right answer might be Uzomah.
I mean, just the fact that it's not the fact that it's a question is just a testament to how disappointing it's been for Gronk. Uzomah's the kind of guy that, the targets may get up a little. His upside is just always capped in an offense like that, where, I mean, Gronk has done nothing, but him and Doyle, we talked about Doyle a little earlier. They just have some games that I think kind of eclipse the ceiling of someone like Uzomah week in and week out.
But when when I'm thinking about it from a season-long perspective, what I want from my tight end is a guy that I don't want to say that doesn't score 0, but if he can get 6 to 10 points every week, I think I'm good with that.
Yeah, I mean, the floor, obviously, that's the killer with some of these guys, Gronk included at this point. It's negligible. It used to not obviously be like that. We'll have to wait and see. AJ Green is certainly going to factor into that. If AJ Green is healthier, is missing only a small amount of time, that's going to be a knock on someone like Uzomah, who's already struggling to carve out enough targets.
That's a completely fair point. I'm sort of assessing this like AJ Green's going to miss some time, because it really seems that way. But obviously we don't know yet, so we can't go on it. So rest of the season, Gronk or Kelsey? We'll just play this game. Gronk or Kelsey? It's Kelsey, right?
Yes.
Ertz or Gronk?
Ertz.
Do you think Ertz gets a bit of a downgrade with Golden Tate around?
A bit of a downgrade, yeah, but I still expect him. He sees a steady amount of targets week in and week out, and honestly, it's the kind of thing I think he gets a downgrade maybe in volume, but an upgrade in efficiency. They're going to have one more weapon these defenses are going to have to prepare for. I still expect Ertz to get some red zone looks and be just fine.
Kittle or Gronk? It's Kittle for me.
Ooh. It's Kittle for me too, but that's where we're getting real close.
I don't even think that's close. I think you just want Kittle.
Really?
Yeah.
Even with your boy Nick Mullins at the helm,
Nick
you don't
Mullins.
worry about that.
I mean, this is funny. Like we talked about this on the spread show that like the line dramatically swung once CJ Beathard was out, and Feinberg and I were like, how do we know that Mullins isn't better than CJ Beathard, who's terrible?
Yeah, man, he came out firing. A lot of people were asking me, is this guy good? I was, I seen him a little in college, but man, that was pretty impressive. We'll see I think they have the Giants this week, I want to say.
Yeah, Monday night.
Oh boy. Well, that's going to be, I'm excited to see that.
Olsen or Gronk? Probably Olsen.
Yeah. Also, I mean, Carolina, I don't want to say they're my team this year, but I am way higher on Carolina than anybody. I've been riding them the entire year like Cam, and Greg Olsen seems healthy. I thought he would be working his way up. He came back from a broken foot, and he's just been all systems go.
OJ Howard. I think I'd rather have OJ Howard than Gronk.
OJ Howard, yeah. I mean, he caught 2 yesterday. Fitzy seems to look to him around the goal line. God, is that close? I think I have to say OJ Howard, honestly.
And I would take Njoku over Gronk, too. I think those are the guys that are like lock and load better than Gronk from this point on.
Yeah, Njoku, I mean, it's true. He's obviously, I'm not a huge Baker guy, but just what we've seen from Gronk this year has been so disappointing. And obviously the way the Patriots operate, if you're not effective, they just have other ways to go. It's not like they are losing and they desperately need to get him back involved.
That's the big conundrum here, that like if you're the Patriots and you're 7-2 already, running away with this, I guess you want to play for home field in case Kansas City slips up somewhere. You hold the tiebreaker, so you're really only a half game behind them. And you would end up playing all your games at Foxborough if that was the case. And you're really going to want that come playoff time. But if it's not in the picture, like why even play Gronk?
That's what I'm saying. Like it's really feasible that say he's, out limited, in the short term. And then as the season develops, it becomes a clear picture for the Patriots one way or another in terms of home field. He would be the first guy they would shut down to get healthy, for playoff time.
And you got games against the Jets. I think they play the Jets twice still. So you got 2 games against the Jets. You got a game against the Bills. You got a game against the Dolphins. Like, what happens if they get up 25-0 in these games? If Gronk doesn't do a part of that scoring, they probably just take him out.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, again, it's the Patriots are smart like that. They know when to push it and when not to. And sadly, these teams, the AFC East is not competitive. I wouldn't be stunned to see Gronk limited, even if he is back, and ready to play. He needs to get his damage early in these games.
Quarterback, streamers, it does look like everyone's going to be back at quarterback, potentially. Like Josh Allen should be back this week. It'll be nice to see him. Beathard might be back, but he's probably not going to play. We don't know the word on that yet. It looks like Mullins will probably end up starting Monday night against the Giants. And Ryan Tannehill may be back this week with a shoulder injury. There's no real concrete word on him. Someone brought it up to me yesterday. It's just like, how did Ryan Tannehill, going from missing, like he was warming up for the game, and then all of a sudden he's out, and now he hasn't been back since. And we had the whole Brocktober, and now it's we're gonna get into November, and Brock's still starting. It's really strange. So streamers, I got Dalton against New Orleans. Seems like a lot of pass volume in that sense. Alex Smith against Tampa, because Tampa, and the Redskins' offensive line has been absolutely decimated the last 2 weeks. And I don't know if they're going to be able to run the ball as effectively as they were even 3 weeks ago when Peterson was kind of going nuts. Like, they lost 2 guards yesterday. Trent Williams is going to be out a month. That's not a good situation for their running game. So you put more onto Alex Smith to throw the ball. Bortles at Indy, I feel like that always is just a garbage time sensation, or Jacksonville absolutely waxes them. So I'm okay with Bortles this week. Trubisky against Detroit. Baker, Rosen against Kansas City. Did any of these guys stand out to you as, like, besides Dalton, I guess, who's actually a pretty good start, he'll probably be a top 10 guy for me, that you would just want to stream?
Oh, boy. I think I have to say Baker, and that's more just who they're playing than him. It's, he's been so-so. I targeted him a couple times. I had him against the Bucs and whatnot. Falcons' defense is, I think, clearly the worst in the league, and it's not even their fault. They lost Deion Jones. They lost both safeties early in the year, and they're just so banged up. They really just don't have the personnel to really, hamper teams. Now, can they lean on Chubb? Maybe, but the Falcons' offense is still good enough where this game could get a little up and down. With Duke Johnson being an asset, obviously you have Landry, Njoku. Baker's somewhat mobile, pending that he's all right. He took a couple shots. He looks a little banged up, but I I don't see anything that I think he's in trouble. I think it's a pretty good spot to target as a streamer.
So I think I might upgrade him over Trubisky. I always just like Bortles against Indy. It feels like that pays off every single time.
Yeah, Bortles is one of those guys that even when sometimes him playing horrible, I remember against the Chiefs this year, he was as bad as you could be, and he still got there because the garbage time, he can run, which, I don't really associate that with Bortles, but he is somewhat mobile. And obviously, if the Jaguars do get out ahead, yeah, maybe because of the running game, but you would assume that he's involved as well.
So I'll move Baker up 1 over Trubisky against the Lions. That does seem like a game where they can run a lot, that maybe that takes it off of Trubisky a little bit. Although he's incredibly mobile too. He was described to me as like the advanced version of Tim Tebow for fantasy, where he's going to throw touchdowns and then do the majority of his fantasy scoring with his legs.
Trubisky's been, frustrating for me because I just haven't been playing him, and he's put up his ceiling is enormous, and it's because of the upside. He didn't have to do anything against the Bills, but before that, basically, 50, 60 yards rushing here and there, find the end zone against New England. And his throws, yeah, he makes some bad throws, but in a fantasy setting, that's not that big of a deal. Sometimes it actually helps because it makes the game more up and down. So not the best real life quarterback, but at home against the Lions, who, obviously the Raiders take the cake for just disgraceful performances. But the Lions yesterday were so pathetic. That was one of the more frustrating games of the week.
I don't understand what happened to them whatsoever.
How?
I really liked I thought that game was going to be close. And I guess if they don't do like the option fumble that gets taken to the house, it probably would have been a 3-point game, shockingly enough, because Minnesota didn't play all that well either. Well, it was nice to see Dalvin Cook look somewhat spry. But I had the +5, and I was like, all right, let's go here. Just score a touchdown, we're covering, and here we go. And then, good God, I don't understand what happened.
Yeah, well, what happened first, as you said it, that Stafford inexplicably ran an option for no reason in the middle of a play. But how he was sacked, I think it was 10 or 11 times. It was absurd. He missed Golladay on a wheel route that could have been a touchdown. It was just a super frustrating game. That was pathetic. I liked the Lions in that game as well. I was pretty disappointed.
Defenses to stream coming into Week 10. Like I mentioned, the Chargers have 3 cupcakes in a row. If they get Bosa back, all of a sudden, you're looking pretty good. I have them at number 2, though, because I really like the Packers at home against the Dolphins. The Dolphins' offense can go one way or another, but it's been pretty inept the last 2 weeks once teams got some tape on Brock. And whether it's Brock, whether it's Tannehill, I don't really care. That offensive line is banged up. They just lost Laramie Tunsil, and the Packers have a top 10 pass rush. If there's one thing they can actually do on defense, it's get to the passer. And if they're going to be putting up points against the Dolphins, which presumably they will, then you're going to get into a situation where you either have Brock or you have Tannehill throwing 40-plus times. And I'll take my chances that you get in his face 5 times. And either one of them makes some very poor decisions.
Yeah, I think that's, it's one of the situations that stands out as the best. And then when you look at it, it's hard to argue otherwise. It's a game that the Packers, first of all, they have to win this game at home. Just need to have it. No ifs, ands, or buts. They should be up. And that defense, last night, obviously, they did get a little banged up. So we got to see Martinez and a couple of guys got hurt. But they looked pretty good. That front seven could put some heat on them. And that's the type of quarterback, regardless of who's under center for the Dolphins, that's a perfect kind of guy to make some big mistakes, and you can rack up the points that way.
And even 2 weeks ago, I know the Rams put up a ton of points. They did a pretty good job of slowing down that offense.
Yeah, and they got nothing. The Packers have played, against probably 2 of the 3 best teams in the league. They got nothing to show for it, and the defense both times was pretty impressive. Certainly gave them a chance to win the games.
If you want to go down, again, it's almost a pass rush thing. I like where the Bears offensive line is banged up now. This is kind of predicated with Detroit actually scoring some points, which who knows at this point, but if they get a chance to tee off on Trubisky, I think it's one of these situations again where Trubisky will have his runs and whatever, but if he has to pass more than 30 times in a game, you're going to get in his face and he's going to make stupid decisions. Bills defense or Jets defense this week?
Ooh, I don't want to hedge it. I would say Jets if Peterman is starting, but if it's Josh Allen, I would go to the Bills defense.
Maybe. I like the Jets at home. I guess that's the one thing.
Yeah, Jets at home obviously helps. Bills defense, though,
is good, but they never get an advantageous game script to take advantage of.
Well, it's hard when, all they get these situations where it's just a matter, did the guy return it for a straight touchdown or did he get pushed out at the 2-yard line? Now they're on the field. Like, they just have no chance like that. It's so hard for them. But if someone, maybe Josh Allen, can limit the turnovers, I would take their chances. They can be an effective bad team by just playing conservative.
They can, but the problem is, like you mentioned, they keep falling behind in these games, and then they're absolutely fucked. It's legit over once they get down by, once they get down like 6-0, they give up 2 field goals. It's basically curtains for them. So it's a tough situation to be in. Although I'm now, like I mentioned, Darn Sanchez, he might be colorblind after some of the throws that I saw him make. And Cust he used 2 excuses yesterday that were pretty good. The center one is legitimate. There were some bad snaps, but eventually you have to overcome that. But his new working theory is that none of this would be a problem for the Jets if Woody Johnson wasn't out serving his country as ambassador to the UK. That if he was around to run the ship, none of this would be a problem.
We could use Woody back.
That is next level excuse making.
I was gonna say that's so outrageous that you have to stop and think about it before you reject it, which I respect that. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, Darnold's, it's not to the Bills. The Bills' domino effect when they get down is unlike anything I've ever seen. The Jets do have some of that as well. Like, once it becomes, okay, it's catch-up mode, Darnold makes some throws that are, yesterday, that was, talk about next level. That was absurd. That one interception in particular was one of the worst throws I've seen of the year. But yeah, this is going to be a fascinating game, even though it's 2 of the worst teams in the league, just because one of them is going to have to take control. And if they can do that, their defense should be able to force some turnovers and put some heat on the other.
All right, before we start taking some questions from the chat, let's talk Showdown a little bit for tonight. It's a really crappy game. What do you do when you have 2 offenses that aren't good going up against each other for Showdown? Like, have you cracked the Showdown code? Because I know my guys at Daily Roto, if you use the promo code ThePME, you get 10% off at Daily Roto for any of the packages, football, basketball, whatever it is. But they took down the Showdown again last night. Like, it's crazy how well they're doing with it. Apparently they've unraveled the secret to these Showdown slates. But for the life of me, like, I so rarely cash in them because I have no idea what I'm doing.
It's a tricky situation. Obviously, it's one game. Crazy stuff happens. So, what we talk about at Awesome all the time is you want to tell a story. Obviously, that's where it starts. So it doesn't matter what that is per se. It just doesn't make sense, kind of like a puzzle. So in a game like this, the most obvious story is its defense, kickers. Teams are going to stall in the red zone. So this is one where fantasy points on the whole should be, I'd say, somewhat limited. And you can, put a defense in the captain spot. You can play both kickers, and then you can fill in with a couple skill positions. Unlike a game like last night where it was hard to imagine, barring some kind of fluky thing, that the skill position weapons wouldn't get there.
So what do you do for your captain spot in this situation? Do you play Zeke? Like, you mentioned you could put a defense in there. Like, how do you differentiate? Like, do you ever use the chalk guy as the captain? Because I assume, like, Zeke's going to be captain in 50% of people's lineups.
That's the thing. It's obviously one game, the ownership, like Zeke will be like 80% owned, and you're right, probably like 50% in the captain spot. If you're going to do that, even on a one game, we talk about in golf, you always want to be different at some point in your lineup. Even in Showdown, it is kind of the same. If you're going to use Zeke at the captain, you're going to have a tough time unless you do something borderline irresponsible in terms of trying to be somewhat unique. And on these Showdowns, obviously you're probably going to be duplicated by a couple people, but there's a huge difference between 200 people having your lineup and 5 people having your lineup. And that is an important thing in terms of your EV. So I don't mind, saying I'm going to roll, say, the Cowboys defense out there, put some pressure on Mariota. Maybe the game, maybe they get ahead with someone like Zeke on the ground, and then, they can force a big turnover or 2.
I think that if you're playing for first in this situation, you're playing limited lineups, I think the move would be to stack Tennessee because no one's going to do it.
Yeah, that's where it goes, telling a story. Okay, if you think the Titans can maybe get up, and that's not going to be a popular story, which certainly adds to the appeal. Maybe you throw in, put Mariota in the captain with Corey Davis.
I would actually think that instead of using Corey Davis, because I feel like he probably gets shut down here, that Tajah Sharp might be the guy to use.
Ooh, that's a UMass guy, my man, who's one of the few college players we got. him and Victor Cruz. So yeah, you could use him. Obviously, Dion Lewis would make sense. He's going to be one of the more popular Titans on the slate. And you can do that. And then you can still run it back with someone where, I mean, Zeke, just from a pure point standpoint, obviously has the best chance to be part of the optimal lineup tonight.
All right, so if Jeff Swaim misses the game, which he's likely to do, would you use a $900 Blake Jarwin?
Well, don't really know who that is, but in these slates, when you have injuries, you can take guys who are, I mean, we saw a couple weeks back now, Aldrick Robinson. He was on the field for a handful of snaps, found the end zone, was part of the optimal showdown lineup. It is as open in terms of a player pool. If the guy sees some snaps and he's somewhat of an asset, you can roll the dice there. I mean, that's the only way you can get ownership that's not 30, 40% in some of these situations.
Well, I think if Swaim's out, it comes down to like Jarwin, or it comes down to Uncle Rico Gathers, who the internet loves. So he's probably just a pure fade that you just take the other guy.
Yeah, he's the former college basketball player. There's a couple of those. That's speaking, not that we need to go back to Jack Doyle, but the Colts threw a touchdown to a guy that I knew him from college basketball, had no idea he was in the NFL, Mo Alley Cox. Like, they got guys popping up all over the place. But yeah, Rico Gathers that if the ownership on someone like one of these cheap punts raises, that's immediately a red flag, because the allure of getting a guy that's like 10% is so valuable in a single game format.
So I guess I'm looking back to week 8 in the snap share for the tight ends for the Cowboys. This is the one kind of fun thing about the showdown slates. You're like, who are these guys? So,
yeah, you find some randos.
So Swaim hurt his knee, played 71% of the snaps. After that, Dalton Schultz actually played the most snaps at 29%. Blake Jarwin played 14%, and Rico Gathers played 11%. So, like, Jarwin is, what I say, is $800 on the showdown slate. Dalton Schultz is $300.
And that's where you're going to see some of those guys in lineups where, say, you use Zeke at the captain and then you, like, jam in guys and you need a pure punt. The thing you want to be aware of is everybody is going to use them in those situations. So the move to me is, obviously, in a showdown, you can leave money on the table. That's a given. You can mix and match with something like that, and you can use them maybe in a spot with different guys so that if you get it right, you have some leverage in terms of being a little different within the build of 6 guys.
All right. Early spreads for the week. Obviously, tonight's game, the Titans are now down to +5. They opened at +6.5. It's moving towards them. I still like the Titans to cover the number. You?
No, I don't. I hope they cover, but I don't. I think the Cowboys at home control the game. Not that Amari Cooper is going to be super valuable, but even if he's valuable enough in the sense that kind of what I thought the Patriots with Josh Gordon would do, which is just keep them honest, it can open it up for Beasley, for Gallup, obviously for Zeke. Ugly game. I think the Cowboys cover, though.
Gallup might be a nice play tonight because
Gallup.
Everyone's on Cooper. That Gallup was the one who was really breaking out before the bye.
Yep, and exactly. And all this is going to do, he's still going to have plenty of opportunities for targets. It's not like they have so many weapons where he can't get his share. It's just going to put more eyes on Amari Cooper. There's obviously no chance that Tennessee is coming into this game worrying about stopping Gallup. That's more of an afterthought, and that could be really appealing tonight.
Thursday night, your Carolina Panthers, as we found out, +4. They're dogs in Pittsburgh on the short week. I can't believe Ben is still playing. I thought he was dead yesterday.
Ooh, that was a bad one, and then he was completely fine. I thought he separated his shoulder, and he just got the wind knocked out of him. Yeah, give me the Panthers. I don't know. I don't have it in front of me, but I'll say, what are they, +1? You have the money lines? +165-ish.
Let's see. What is the money line? Money line, there's no money lines out yet for any of these games next week.
Yeah, I don't even need the points. Panthers. I'll put it like this. I think the Panthers win the NFC South. I know that's a hot take, but I think they win that division.
Cardinals +16.5 in Kansas City. Is that too many or not enough points?
Oh, man. I would love to say both, which is a logical fallacy. It's not, honestly, it's not enough. It's hard to imagine that the Chiefs don't hang as many as they need at this point, 38, 45. And, Rosen, I will give him credit. He's been somewhat effective. It's not like the Bills or anything. It's just, they're just so electric, and it's in Arrowhead. That's a tough spot.
I'm just kind of perusing these early ones.
Yeah.
The Raiders are 10-point dogs at home against the Chargers. I feel like they can keep that game close.
Yeah, that's one.
Long week to prepare.
Everyone's just ripping them. It's an afterthought. That's the kind of game where the Chargers, that not trying to overthink it, but big game in Seattle. Now they go to Oakland, where that's just one of those where they sleepwalk and don't cover the number.
I always like these big division odds too. Like I'll probably end up, on Wednesday's spread show, we'll talk through this a little bit more. These are just kind of my initial impressions looking at it. But like plus 10 for Oakland at home seems good. And plus 10 for the Seahawks on the road against the Rams seems good. They've already covered this number once this year. And it's a division game. And I like the way, even without Earl Thomas, like Seattle's defense has been okay. It didn't look great yesterday, but they got taken advantage of really early. Then they looked solid the rest of the game.
Yeah, they almost somehow made that a full comeback. Seattle's I was really short on them this year. I did not think they would be even remotely competitive, to be honest. And then when Earl Thomas went down, they have been impressive. They've been in games. They fought hard. 10 points is a lot, even though the Rams, obviously they're coming off the loss, going home, tough division game. Definitely not, first glance. It's not like I'm saying the Rams are going to lose, but there's a big difference between winning the game and covering a 10-point spread.
Oh, exactly. I guess the other big one, too, Cincinnati plus 4.5 at home against New Orleans. Seems like a letdown for New Orleans.
Yeah, that's a classic trap game. We'll have to see what that line does with A.J. Green, obviously. That will affect it a bit, but big game in the Superdome, get the win. Now you travel to Cincy, road favorite, home dog, obviously, for Cincy. That's another spot where I would probably lean to.
Okay,
Bengals.
So of all the games that have lines on them right now, like there's no Titans Patriots line, there's no Miami Packers line, there's no Dallas Eagles line. So the Lions and Bears has a 45 total. That is the lowest, except for Jacksonville and Indianapolis, which is 47, which seems like an over for sure. Every Indy game is basically an over. So all the other games are above 50 in terms of point total, except for one. What do you think the Bills-Jets over-under is?
I was going to say it's either no line out, because there's no chance that could be. The Bears and the Bills last week, I think it was around 38. I'll give this 36.
36 and a half.
Ooh, okay. That's so pathetic. What's the spread?
It is Jets -8.
Wow. 36 and Jets -8. So that's...
You're about to say that the Bills and the points with an over-under that low is probably the play, because that's exactly the same thing I said last week about Chicago. Be like, if the over-under is that low, how don't I take the +10? Apparently, don't take the +10.
Doesn't work like that. Yeah, when your implied total for the Bills is like 13 points again, which it certainly will be, it's absurd how ineffective. It's sad. That's my exact logic was at home, points, 37, and they're getting 10. Just don't turn the ball over, sleepwalk, and win or lose the game 21-17, 21-14. 41-9 was not exactly what I had drawn up.
Okay, so I'm going to wave goodbye to the podcast viewers. We don't want to eat up everyone's data with a 2-hour show to download. So that's the Waiver Wire show for Week 10. If you ever want to get into the chats for asking your ad drop questions, whatever it is, and you can always get banned from the YouTube chat too. That's always fun. People seem to enjoy that. Mm-hmm. But that's it for the audio podcast version. If you want to ask your question, tune in around 11 a.m.-ish for the question and answer period on the YouTube channel on Monday morning, every single Monday morning. Chris Meany will be back next week. So thank you all for watching. Rate and review the podcast. Let's get those numbers up. Got to get 10 million, all right? All right, I'll see you next time. YouTube questions. Ready for this?
Yeah.
Pat, please don't ban me. This is not the makings of a good question. So also, start-sit questions if you're out there. If they don't pertain to Monday night game, then I haven't done my rankings for week 10 yet in terms of start-sits that you're instantly banned forever from the chat. So, these are the rules. People love ban for life. And people
run a tight ship.
You got to. Hey, listen, it really worked for the Sunday show. We answered over 380 questions. We weren't able to get to them all on the Sunday show solely because people stopped cluttering the chat with nonsense, and then it was just start-sit questions, like boom, 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 boom. We can just fire them all off. So he says, I have a general question. Why did they give Latavius Murray the touchdown yesterday when the ruling on the field was fumble recovered by Rudolph and was not reviewed? Because it was a Latavius Murray touchdown. That's why.
That's a great question to start with because, we had 1 p.m. lock. I'm very excited. Kyle Rudolph, one of my highest owned players. I luck boxed a touchdown. Thought it was going to be a sign of good things yesterday, and then boom. Right off the board. It was weird the way they happened. I'm assuming they reviewed that at one point and they said he broke the plane because I was honestly confused about that as well.
Yeah, well, it's almost like when you play like even season long, like you can get stat corrections afterwards. Like they take away like 2 rushing yards for someone. They call it a passing yard, or they call it something that was a catch, actually a run, because when they went back and reviewed it, it was actually behind the line of scrimmage, not a forward pass. It was close to a lateral that all of a sudden you lose a reception. You retain the yardage, you lose a reception, you lose the point. I think when they looked at it here, when they reviewed the play, was they didn't do it instantaneously. They waited like 2 minutes, but when they reviewed the score, that they saw that, and you could see it, that Murray broke the plane with the ball. It was his touchdown, that they just rectified it and gave it to Murray.
Yeah, they should have just left it. Would have really helped.
It's funny. It's funny. I went the other way. I had 0 Kyle Rudolph, and I actually used a bunch of Latavius Murray because I figured that everyone would jump off of him because of Dalvin Cook. And so I was fired up, although he didn't.
There you go.
He had a shot. No. He had a shot at the second touchdown, but he couldn't convert. Although it was a week to pay up at running back, as it turned out.
Yeah, there was some lot of huge performances from running backs yesterday.
Like, who was the only good pay down running back? Nick Chubb? Duke?
Yeah, Nick Chubb, Duke, who was like non-existently owned. Obviously Mike Davis, but you wouldn't have gone there in the sense that when Carson was starting, it was a hard sell.
Yeah, it made no sense once Carson was active. Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. It was not to do it. No, it was those 7K running backs again. It was, Hunt, McCaffrey, Kamara, Connor, the same bunch again.
Francisco asks, smart move to sell high on Josh Gordon. It depends. All these sell high questions, it really helps if you add any sort of context to them. Like, who would you be trading him for? Who would you be selling high for getting in return? Like, he's not a sell high just to sell him. Like, if you're not getting anyone quality back, like, where would you think that Josh Gordon ranks among wide receivers the rest of the season? Because I still feel like it's going to be a bit boom or bust.
Yeah, obviously he's carved out a nice role and it seems to be expanding. I still don't feel that he's overly, secure in the sense that they have Edelman, they have easier targets, James White, of course. So it does feel boom or bust, and that prevents him from being in that, that super top tier with the big wide receiver ones. Even from a DFS standpoint, all the time, I obviously talk about regression and things like that, but you need a reasonable pivot. You don't just pivot off a guy just to pivot off him. You certainly need, a reason to and reasonable options.
So, like, if it was PPR scoring the rest of the season, I still think I'd rather have Edelman than Gordon.
Oh, yeah. So would I. I mean, Edelman, his targets are so secure. He's always kind of the safety blanket. And Gordon works on the outside where, he's looked great. He certainly has, and it is impressive. But in a PPR setting, those short, just look at James White, the way he operates. He gets there, these 3-4 yard passes, they add up so quickly.
Michael says, Josh Gordon won me $13K last night. Michael! Ooh. That's amazing.
Very nice.
That's amazing. $13K. I wish I had $13K. That'd be fantastic. I'd retire from the show forever. I'd take my $13K and move to the Cayman Islands.
Yeah. Got to make it work. Move to Nepal. Renounce all your possessions.
Exactly. I don't think $13K is going to be. How much did you win when you won the Thunderdome at the Masters? How much was that?
That was for 200.
200K? And you didn't retire?
No, I didn't retire. My girlfriend now she just makes glass, so I think she retired for me. She spent that money more than I did.
It's like when I won the 20K at Heritage, my wife was just like, hey, we can get a new kitchen. I was like, yeah that's what I want to spend the money on. That sounds great. Yeah, thanks.
No, I certainly didn't reap all the dividends of that. We got new paintings, new house. It's a lot of renovations around this place.
Yeah, but congratulations, Michael. That's awesome. I love to hear when people are winning big bucks out there. That's absolutely tremendous. And Oh, you won 13K last night, and you're in the waiver wire chat. I love it. That's fantastic.
Cool.
Hey, Ben, do you think the Cowboys' defense and their kicker should be in a showdown lineup, or just keep the Cowboys' D or their kicker?
No, I think it correlates well if you want to go there. They can easily at home cause Tennessee some problems, and it's not out of the realm of possibilities that Tennessee's defense is effective enough to stall that offense. Kicking in it, obviously, Dallas, you don't have to worry about the weather. That's another boost to the kickers. It's not like an outdoor game. So I certainly plan to have some lineups that have both the Cowboys D and the kicker in it.
Michael actually has a tax question. You could probably answer this better because we don't pay taxes in Canada. Whatever we win on DraftKings is money for us. So what do you do as it pertains to the taxes? Like, do you take it all out at once, then have to save that money for the end of the year?
So your withdrawals don't mean anything. Like if you don't take any money out, you still get taxed for your net profits. The site will send you a 1099, and you're responsible to pay that, come tax time. So, I mean, I withdraw money throughout the year and I pay estimated tax and stuff, but you should definitely talk to a tax professional. I'm certainly not one of those, but yeah, regardless, a lot of people think like, oh, I want all this money, I'll just keep it in my account and then they won't tax me. That's not how it works. It has nothing to do with your withdrawals.
Let's see. Pat, is the show available on Spotify? It is. If you go down to the comments section and see the pinned tweet at the top from DraftKings, you'll see Spotify, the second link there. That should bring you to the subscription if you want to do that. Pat, Goff is my current quarterback. His bye week is week 12 and doesn't have the nicest playoff schedule. Do I stream or trade for a second QB? I have Matt Ryan and Luck offered to me for Lindsey. I actually like Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan has a pretty sweet playoff schedule, as I recall going into it. Just that entire NFC South, there's no good defenses. I mean, even you like Carolina. Their defense isn't so hot.
No, it's not. That's a good division to target. You said it. You have the Bucs, the Saints, and Carolina. Some are in the domes, some are south. So like as the weather gets worse, that's not going to be an issue either. Expect a lot of up and down games in that division regardless of who you're playing.
Yeah, so the next few weeks, like Browns, Cowboys, Saints, Ravens, not the greatest, but playoffs, you get Packers, Cardinals, Panthers in the play. It's not the greatest schedule, but Atlanta throws the ball so much that Matt Ryan's going to be a top 10 quarterback. And with Goff, we saw the extreme example of Goff yesterday where he got thrown into the perfect game script, where he was able to chuck it. Now, most of the time, like when they're 10-point favorites like they are this week, now I think Seattle can keep it close. That just seems like an extreme running game where now you're relying on the variance of him throwing touchdowns, not getting the yardage, not getting all those bulk pass attempts, that you're hoping that basically he puts up Russell Wilson numbers where he throws the ball 20 times but throws for 4 touchdowns. That's really hard to bank on. So I would actually just try to sell Jared Goff, especially coming off the big game.
I agree. Jared Goff's one of those guys. It's a blessing and a curse. The team is so good, and they put him in such smart positions. He really doesn't have to open it up as much. You said it yesterday was the exception, and you saw how big the numbers were. But week in and week out, they can control the game on the ground. They give him easy throws. He doesn't have to go, full go, and that does limit the upside. That's why I like to target those more volatile QBs. Someone like Andrew Luck, who's just a lot of times those games are shootouts. They're a mess. And he's just relied on to throw the ball 60 times.
All right, remember, if you're out there still watching, please smash that like button. That allows us to continue to bring this to you for free and live. And jump into the chat. Would you trade Kenny Golladay for Josh Gordon? I would, although I think they're very, very close in terms of actual performance. I know Golladay hasn't been good, but like you mentioned, he's had a touchdown the last 2 weeks. He had one called back on a penalty, and he was gone yesterday if Stafford had just made a competent throw. So I think good things are coming for Kenny Golladay, but when you play, especially if you're going to continue to make trades, Josh Gordon is just a more valuable asset in the trade market than Kenny Golladay. And with all things being equal, I think they're very close, that I'd rather have the more valuable asset, I think.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's close for me too. It doesn't seem like it with the way they're playing, but Golladay, it should be better. And I don't think that, it's necessarily over. Tate being gone should boost him. They've just been disappointing. And Josh Gordon obviously riding high. We talked about certainly, I don't think he's just a surefire number one receiver week in and week out with the big boys, but I would make that move as well.
Should I pick up Duke Johnson for Rocket Richard? As much as I love Rocket Richard, yes, you should drop Rocket Richard for Duke Johnson. How much fab would you spend on Mike Davis? I have $60 left of my running backs are Lamar, Jalen Richard, and Chris Thompson. The problem is, hopefully we get some word on Chris Carson, because if Chris Carson is healthy, Mike Davis is kind of useless. So I wouldn't go blowing all my fab budget on him.
That's the thing. To me, it's injury dependent. Now, if Carson is banged up, yeah, that's a nice spot. Especially, I think you mentioned Lamar Miller. Talk about bad yesterday.
And Alfred Blue kept getting all these touches.
I know. Dude, you don't have to tell me. I really could have used Lamar Miller not being absolutely useless. And to make it worse, one's 28, one wears 26, so I can never tell who's in the backfield. And that's even more tilting when you think it's your guy, and then it's just Alfred Blue.
Let's see. Tyler Boyd, wide receiver number 1, like a top 12 wide receiver with A.J. Green out. Here's the sneaky thing. Tyler Boyd may have been a top 12 receiver with A.J. Green in.
He was on the cusp. I mean, he's been unbelievable in PPR. It's just catching everything Dalton's going to him. And if A.J. Green is out, fire him up. He's going to be relied on for a lot.
Is there a chance that Boyd actually takes a step back if A.J. Green is out because he'll have to face primary coverage?
So it's one of those situations. I mentioned this with Zach Ertz, where I said, I think his volume goes down and his efficiency goes up. I would think the opposite here. And I know Boyd's volume has already been big, but he's going to get massive workload. Now, the efficiency, maybe it goes down a little because he's going to draw primary coverage. But mix in there and Uzomah, they have a couple other guys that can keep the team honest enough. I expect him to make that up just in pure volume.
Would you trade away Jarvis Landry? I don't think now is the time to trade away Jarvis Landry coming off a not good week. You're kind of stuck with Jarvis Landry. Sell him after he has a good week, and I say this every single week. You can't play the game of, he had a bad week, he sucks. Then if he has a good week, I can't sell him, he's too good. There has to be a reasonable thing here. You always want to sell the guys coming off of good weeks and buying the guys coming off of bad weeks. That's how you make your team better. Here's one, though. Would you rather have Njoku or Doyle the rest of the season? I would rather have Njoku.
I would, too. And it's not even – I like Jack Doyle. He's a good player. But you talked about this. There are so many mouths to feed. You have Ebron, who – of course, this is all the years on the Lions when I would target him on Thanksgiving and my day would be over before we even ate. Now he's catching touchdowns. It's just a lot of people in the Colts right now. Browns, you mentioned Landry not having a great year, and Njoku getting red zone looks. I would stick with him.
Would you sell Marlon Mack or Nick Chubb to trade for Andrew Luck because he needs a QB? I think this depends on how big your league is. If you play in a 10 or a 12 teamer, you can probably just stream, right? I know. Put it this way: how often do you just pay down on DraftKings for a shitty quarterback because they're a good value and they can produce top 10 numbers?
Yeah, I mean the quarterbacks have been so bunched this year. We've seen it time and time again. It's the deepest position every week, and when you have even bottom tier quarterbacks in matchups against some of these atrocious defenses, they can replicate the numbers that most, not if all, the quarterbacks can really produce.
And when you're into this situation, you never really want to trade a starting running back for a quarterback. There are just so few running backs that get the majority of the snaps on their team, that get the goal line work, and you have two of them. Those are very valuable assets. And if you're serious about making a playoff run, you're better off streaming Andy Dalton this week or streaming Baker Mayfield this week and keeping those two guys, only because you're going to need them because there's so many injuries. And it's hard just to go find a running back. If you're going to trade a running back for a quarterback, you need something else back too. You need to make it worth your while. I like Luck. I think Luck is really good, but I feel like you can mine a percentage of his production off the waiver wire where you can't do that with running back.
Yeah, it's just a position scarcity issue. That's what you're talking about. Luck, is he better than some of the guys on the waiver wire? He is. But the drop-off is not as severe of what you lose when you ship off one of those running backs.
In non-PPR scoring, Ben, Amari Cooper, Corey Davis, or Christian Kirk the rest of the season. That's so jumbled.
Whew. I want to say Christian Kirk, honestly.
So do I. I mean, I like Corey Davis, but I feel like Corey Davis and Amari Cooper might be the same guy.
That's true. We don't have proof that they're not at this point. And we don't know what Amari Cooper is going to be in Dallas. I know everyone thinks that him and Dak are just, the Cowboys are going to be fixed. I'm not so sure about that. Corey Davis in Tennessee, I don't have that much confidence. And Rosen to Kirk, we talked about it a little. It's not the worst. he's not, I don't think he gets a huge boost from non-PPR, but at the same time, he finds the end zone here and there, some deep balls, and I would roll the dice there. I'm going to go, I know it's probably a little against the grain. I would go Christian Kirk.
I just feel like someone like Christian Kirk is kind of always going to be on the waiver wire-ish. That it almost comes back to that Josh Gordon thing that I talked about versus Galladay, that if you keep Amari Cooper, and if Amari Cooper has a big game Monday night, like I'm not a believer in Amari Cooper, but his value can spike so quickly because people want to believe. They're like Fox Mulder. They want to believe in Amari Cooper. So if he has this big game, he's so valuable that, like, let's say Christian Kirk went off this week against the Chiefs. People would just make excuses to be like, oh, it was a great matchup. Of course he's going to go off. But if Amari Cooper has a big game, it's like, well, Amari Cooper's like a top 5 talent in football. That what you would be able to get for Amari Cooper in a trade if he goes off in a Monday night game that everyone watches would be so much more than at any point if Christian Kirk had a big game. That would be my only reasoning for Cooper.
That is 100% true. Amari Cooper is one of those guys that people they love to play him. He perpetually disappoints. And then he has games, I think it was against the Chiefs Thursday night last year where he had like 3 touchdowns in the first quarter. And the narrative around him can spin so quickly, especially with a fresh start. So that's a great point. Obviously, if he has a big game today, his stock will be so inflated that that's a value that is different than Christian Kirk, who, again, is not going to garner that type of buzz regardless of the output.
Should I trade Marvin Jones, Pat Mahomes, and Leonard Fournette for Gurley? No, don't do that. Is Todd Gurley for Kamara an even trade? It is not. You'd rather have... Unless Mark Ingram just goes and dies somewhere, then Todd Gurley is going to be better than Kamara.
Yeah, Kamara obviously fantastic, but Gurley is just, workhorse, find the touchdowns, the Rams. It's certainly doesn't have a timeshare situation. It's Gurley.
Well, a lot of people are starting to come around. Last year was, I guess, the aberration. The previous 5 years of worst place Mark Ingram. Worst place Mark Ingram is back. Not only is he doing nothing, he's hurting Elvin Kamara.
Yeah, he's just a straight cannibal. It doesn't get any for him, but just enough to screw up Kamara. I had been fading. This is the first week, maybe ever, honestly, that I got Kamara right. I loved him yesterday, and he was good. I'm normally winning, doing great, and then Kamara has 50 points in the late game against the Giants just to destroy me. He's never a guy I get right. But yeah, Ingram back muddies those waters for sure.
Thoughts on David Johnson the rest of the season? You've been playing him every week, so
I was gonna say I'm not qualified to talk about that. I've literally played him every week. When Byron Leftwich took over, I thought that was going to be the change. I do think that you can still play him here and there. He got 4 targets. That's not what I'm talking about. That's not going to cut it. He needs 8-10 targets. They did win that game against the Niners, but my God, it's frustrating. I'm hoping that Rosen in the passing game can maybe open it up enough, but at this point, I have to just take the L on David Johnson. He's been disappointing the entire year.
If I have Dalvin Cook, is there any trade value for Latavius? Is there any trade value for Latavius Murray? No, there is no trade value for Latavius Murray. Although Cook looked very healthy, much healthier than I assumed he would look here. Like that package play, he ended up playing more snaps than Latavius Murray did. Rest of the season, would you rather have Dalvin Cook or would you rather have David Johnson, do you think?
I would rather have Dalvin Cook at this point. He did look healthy. Obviously, a nice long run yesterday. That offense, Cousins and them, they throw it around. But Dalvin Cook is healthy. That's a guy that's certainly undervalued at this point, and it's been because of the injuries. David Johnson, I'm maybe I've just finally taken too many beatings from him. It's just it doesn't seem that they're using him the way that they should, and it's not going to happen. And when he doesn't get those targets, it really limits it because running between the tackles is not overly effective with the Cardinals.
Would you trade Cook for Fournette? I wouldn't. I would actually keep Dalvin Cook in this situation. Drop Devontae Parker for Valdez-Scantling? Yes, I would do that, Steven. That's a move that I would make. How about this one? Oh, I like this. Has Cuss hit you with Darnold is leading the league in interceptions only because he's played every game? He actually has. That is
another show.
It's like you're playing from the Tim Andercuss playbook with these things.
Yeah, that's right. No buys, no injuries. He's durable, but Like I said, I'm in a weird spot. I like the Jets. I'm a New Yorker, but I'm a Josh Allen guy. So what can I say?
Should I offer Tyreek Hill for Dalvin Cook if I need running back help? I think you could probably get more for Tyreek Hill, but I think that's fair, isn't it? Like they would have similar production. Although Tyreek Hill has been weirdly consistent this year that I don't think people realize.
I certainly realize because I speak to, and I even said it in this show, he's in the Tyreek Hill bucket of 3 receptions, 150 yards. That really hasn't been the case for him as much. He's been they're getting him the ball in space, easier throws. He has been more consistent and less volatile. I think you can get more for him as well. It depends, if you're really in a jam and you desperately need help at running back, I think that's viable. I don't think it's overly bad, but I think you can get a little more for a guy like Tyreek Hill.
Is Christian McCaffrey the second best fantasy running back moving forward because of the Panthers' schedule in the playoffs? The one problem is, and we haven't seen this the past 2 weeks, maybe this is a shift in what they want to do on offense, or maybe they're just trying to throw teams off guard, is that Christian McCaffrey's playing the most snaps of anyone in terms of backfield, 98% of the snaps last week. But I'm still dubious that they're going to continue handing him the ball in the red zone over and over. That it's just something we hadn't seen up until the last 2 weeks, and now it's happening all of a sudden. Maybe that's just going to be the norm moving forward. But I still think that Cam's going to get his. They used Arma to get a touchdown this week. Like, the touchdown upside I always feel is capped for him. Like, I think Kareem Hunt is still probably better than Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah, I'm a big Christian McCaffrey guy. I like him, obviously.
Melvin Gordon's probably better than Christian McCaffrey.
Melvin Gordon is unbelievable. That guy, I know the Chargers have been an afterthought because they were in London, they were on the bye. He just came back and just did his thing again against Seattle yesterday. Yeah, McCaffrey, we saw yesterday Cam was obviously super popular, and the Panthers had like 5 touchdowns, and Cam was responsible for none of them because they were taking guys off the street, giving them reverses for touchdowns. I do think that in games, Cam, always a red zone threat. They have Olsen back. They have new weapons that they get involved. McCaffrey always, you said he's on the field all the time. He's certainly valuable in the passing game. It does seem that in the red zone, though, his TD upside is somewhat limited based on a guy who you would think could carve out a bigger role. So I'm with you. Someone like Kareem Hunt, Melvin Gordon, just by a smidgen.
And if anything happened to Mark Ingram, Kamara would be the second best running back in fantasy.
Yes.
He'd probably be 1A with Gurley if Mark Ingram did not exist. Unfortunately, Mark Ingram is the devil, and he won't go away. Let's see another one here. Derrick Henry or Dion Lewis tonight? I would take Dion Lewis. Floor, upside, doesn't matter what you're going to do. Would you prefer to have Sammy Watkins or Courtland Sutton the rest of the season?
I would prefer Courtland Sutton. I know he just burned everyone, but he's a big guy. I had been buying him before this happened. Big upside, big. I just keep saying big. He can get touchdowns. He's going to be a red zone asset. The target should be there. Him and Sanders, and obviously Sammy Watkins is in a way more high-powered offense, and there is an appeal to that. But he's certainly not even near the top of the options for a team like Kansas City. I would roll the dice with Courtland Sutton.
Okay. Do you think that? Let's see. There was a question here. I don't know where it went. It was something about a trade with Tyler Boyd. Anyway, someone says that this guy can't win. He says, the truth seeker says to you, Ben, DraftKings cheats you, fool. I had leads with no chance of losing, only to wake up and be crushed by 10 teams because it's fixed like the NFL.
True, but I'm one of those 10 teams, so it doesn't bother me.
It doesn't bother you. It's rigged in your favor, is what you're saying?
You might be right, but if it is, I'm benefiting, so I'm not too worried about it.
Oh, man. Imagine being I assume that's a fake comment, but imagine being serious and thinking that.
That might be a little off.
I have Stafford. I'm trying to trade Chubb for Fitzmagic. Do not do that. Don't.
No.
Don't do that at all. If I can get 60% value for Lev Bell, do I do that right now? I guess it depends on what you gauge as 60% value. But do you have any read on this Bell-Connor situation?
No, I really don't. It's really tricky. Obviously, Connor has been awesome, and we'll see what happens. But I honestly, it would be pure speculation. I really have no clue what happens going forward.
Rest of the season, Trey Burton or CJ Uzma? I think I'd just rather go with Uzma.
Man, you really like this guy. I would go with Trey Burton.
It's not that I really like him, but I think he's like the 7th or 8th best tight end. And like, what is Trey? If Trey Burton doesn't catch a touchdown, like he's legit useless.
Yeah, I mean that is true, but they love to go to that guy. I don't know. Something about the Bears offense. Allen Robinson's a little banged up. They got the running backs. They have weapons. It's not like they don't. And I'm not a big Trubisky guy, but I think Trey Burton just does enough where Uzuma, and I know I keep going back to this AJ Green situation. We'll see. Even if he does miss time, though, I don't think it's just a shoo-in that Uzuma gets as a huge target boost. Will we see a little more? Yes, but how well that translates remains to be seen for me.
All right, we're gonna go rapid fire. So just one word answer here on a couple of these questions before we get out of there. Remember to smash that like button so we can continue taking all your questions every single Monday. Would you trade Antonio Brown for Kareem Hunt? I think I would.
Yes.
As sad as that makes me, the answer is yes.
It's really sad, but it's true.
Cook or Fournette rest of the season? I would take.
I would go Fournette.
You would go Fournette? I think I would take Dalvin Cook. That's really close, though, right?
Yeah, toss up, but roll with Fournette.
Tevin Coleman or Nick Chubb rest of the season, and it's also a keeper situation. I would keep and play Nick Chubb the rest of the year.
Yep, agreed.
Diggs and David Johnson for Adam Thielen. I get.
I would.
You wouldn't? You would want you want David Johnson and Diggs?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
That's probably the more valuable side. Would you trade Julio Jones for Dalvin Cook and Tyler Boyd? I think I would make that trade. That's good return for Julio Jones.
Yeah, and obviously the AJ Green thing is just a bonus if he missed a lot of time.
Yeah, and even if there's nothing wrong with AJ Green, I still think that's a deal you want to make.
Same. Yep.
Let's see. These are just Doug Baldwin or Larry Fitzgerald rest of the season. Oh, God.
Woo.
Doug Baldwin.
Yeah, Doug Baldwin. That's old school question.
Yeah, that'd be a much more fun question 3 years ago.
Yep.
Would you drop Hyde and Buck Allen? Yeah. You don't need to own them.
Buck Allen, I'm glad I don't have to talk about him anymore. Get him out of here.
What do you think Hyde does in this Jacksonville offense? Anything? If Fournette's healthy, no, right?
Yeah, that's my next words. If Fournette's healthy, no. I think he's borderline an afterthought, kind of like when Chris Ivory was there. If Fournette goes down, and that's a very distinct possibility, then I think obviously he assumes a big role.
Blunt or Eckler rest of the season? I would take Eckler.
So would I. PPR, even better.
Drop Hyde. Glass Fournette is back. Yeah, and it does seem like TJ Yeldon would be the one to take over like starting duties if Fournette is hurt.
Yeah, I mean, Yeldon obviously is a little more versatile, and he's been there. So it's not a shoo-in that it's a good point that Hyde takes over.
Gronk or Kittle rest of the season? We went over, if you want to hear the whole Gronk conversation, that happened around the 34-minute mark, if you want to go in reverse and hear all of it. But I would definitely take Kittle rest of the season.
Same. Yep.
I have Big Ben stacked with Connor and A.J. Brown. Should I keep this stack in my season-long team or break up the band by trading Antonio Brown? I think that it depends on what you can get for Connor. He's the more logical guy to trade, but you probably won't get around 100% value that you probably would trade Antonio Brown, wouldn't you?
Yeah, it's just, again, like you said, it's a matter of what I wouldn't trade him just to trade him, but if you can get somewhat equal value, no problem with doing that.
I think I can get Edelman by offering Murray to the Cook owner. I would definitely do that.
Yes.
Is DJ Moore back to irrelevancy? I don't think so. He's worth owning, but I took a lot of heat on last week's show by saying that he wasn't that great of a pickup. He had one good game. Let's pump the brakes here a little. That there's a lot of mouths to feed in that offense, and everything runs through Cam. And if Cam starts calling his own number, then all of a sudden, then Cam's is going to be the only one scoring touchdowns. Plus, DJ Moore still doesn't have a red zone target all year. If Torrey Smith is out, I think he's playable as a fringe flex guy, but you probably should have better options. But I think he's worth owning to see if that role expands. If not, then he's droppable. He's like a fringe guy to have on your roster. What do you make of DJ Moore?
Yeah, I think that's well said. He's a guy that he's going to be involved in the Panthers game, but you got Cam who runs everything. You got McCaffrey, you have Olsen, and then it's Funches. We saw Curtis Samuel get involved. There's a lot of guys there, and DJ Moore, falls somewhere in the middle of that pecking order, on the fringe. Week in and week out, he may show some flashes. Don't see a huge consistent contribution made from him though each and every week.
Rest of the season, would you rather have David Johnson, Nick Chubb, or Matt Breida?
I'm going to say Nick Chubb.
I was going to say David Johnson, just because Nick Chubb doesn't catch the ball at all. But it might be Breida with Mostert out, but he still might only play like 50% of the snaps.
He gets hurt on every drive. Not every game. Every drive he's injured. And when he's healthy, yeah, I mean, that's a guy that I have the hardest gauging Breida by far. I would have said David Johnson, obviously, in a snap. He's just been so disappointing. I've kind of sold off. I took the loss there, and I don't know. Chubb's a tough one.
Ito Smith for DJ Moore. I need a wide receiver with AJ Green up in the air. Sure, go for it. You don't need to have Ito Smith. Judge Ito doesn't need to be on your team. Would you trade Jared Goff for Aaron Rodgers? I would.
Yeah, I would too.
Okay. Picking up Uzma, safe to drop Latavius Murray as a Dalvin Cook owner. I mean, I would try to find someone else to drop. We've seen these problems pester Dalvin Cook before, and you don't need to keep a handcuff on your team if that guy's going to do nothing if he becomes the starter. But we've seen that if there is no Dalvin Cook, Latavius Murray is a fringe top 10 running back. So I would try to hold on to him. And if you're picking up Uzma, that means I presume you have a tight end to drop. You definitely don't need to own 2 tight ends. I'll tell you that much. Mm-hmm. Tyler Boyd or Odell rest of the season?
Ooh, Tyler Boyd has been great, but I'm going Odell.
That's a real conversation, though.
Yeah, that just shows where Tyler Boyd is at because it's not just snap 100% Odell.
Should I hang on to Naheem Hines and Gio Bernard? It depends on who you're picking up in their place. You don't need to own either one of them, but if you're going to pick up, if you're dropping them for nobody, then I would say hold on to them. You don't need to have the empty bench spot. Just keep them on your team. Let's see. Sorry, Pat, late to the show. Did you discuss Maurice Harris already? 12 targets in the slot. I mean, eventually Jamison Crowder comes back, doesn't he, Ben?
Well, I've been thinking that for a while. Eventually he should be back. The Redskins offense is really difficult to peg. I tried to jump on Maurice Harris a couple times this year when they were really banged up with Richardson and Doxson. I think that's Crowder's spot soon enough.
Yeah.
It feels like that. But he's been out for a while now.
All right. Should I drop Shady McCoy? No, but
Yeah. Okay.
Ivory's hurt now too.
Yeah, it's I don't even know. I think it's Marcus Murphy.
Marcus Murphy.
Yikes. No, yeah, you shouldn't drop Shady, but I understand the question for sure.
Let's see here. A few more. Is Marcus Valdez-Scantling a wide receiver 2 moving forward? I don't know if he's that high, but he's wide receiver 3. He's a guy that you can play.
If somebody goes down, he could vault into that, but no, he's in the current role with Allison. I'd say wide receiver 3.
Okay, last one from Ed, because he smashed the like button, and that's what we do here. Unless we're at 103 likes, if you want some more questions answered, if we can get this up to 125 before we finish answering this question, we'll take a few more. Would you trade away Le'Veon Bell for Kenny Golladay, Emmanuel Sanders, Greg Olsen, Alshon Jeffrey, Golden Tate? Oh, I'm guessing it's not for all of those guys. It's just for one of those guys. That's a lot of receivers. Would any of those guys, I know we don't know what to do with Le'Veon Bell, but this is a real-life scenario where people have him. What do you do with him? It's hard to give proper advice, because it's going to be a gamble either way. But are any of those guys good enough that you would feel good about trading Le'Veon Bell away for them? Is Alshon Jeffrey's probably the best guy on that list? Maybe Sanders?
Sanders would be the guy for me. See, the thing, I would have said Alshon, but him and Tate now, I don't talk about an unknown. We don't know how that really falls. Sanders is going to get the work. I know Denver's not great, but he would be the one guy. And you said this. I really don't know about Lev Bell. It's a total gamble. If I was going to do it, he would be the guy I would do it for, though.
Yeah, I think I just keep Bell and go down with the ship. If he comes back and he's Bell, he's a league winner.
It's probably worth the gamble. That's more about risk tolerance than anything else, though, if you want to go down with that ship.
Yeah, and he's probably not going to be back this week. He might not be back next week. We'll see. He might not come back at all. That's the whole problem. If you're 3-6, you probably got to make the move right now. because you need to win this week. There's no more losses you can have on your schedule, but I think that might depend on where you sit in the standings as well. I have Godwin. Should I pick up Humphreys to replace him? Probably.
Humphreys yesterday was awesome. I had a tiny sliver, and I don't know. I think I would stick with Godwin. I know the last couple games the targets have been there for Humphreys, but I'm not sure. There's a lot of mouths to go around in Tampa. I think I'd stick with Godwin.
Yeah, we got to the 125 likes. So managed to find Sony Michel on the waiver wire. Lucky to be in your league, man. I have Chubb, Bell, Christian McCaffrey, and Carrion. Would you drop Carrion for a wide receiver that has potential like Kiki? No, probably not.
Not for Kiki, I wouldn't.
Yeah. If it was someone really good, yeah, Kiki is the carry-on of wide receivers kind of thing.
Exactly.
So it depends on what you want to do. Running backs just inherently have more value, is the whole thing.
Every time.
Put it this way, if you made that switch right now, you can still trade carry-on. People like carry-on still, even though he hasn't been good the last 2 weeks. People are still in on him. That you could probably trade carry-on for a better receiver than Kiki. That'd be my thought process.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. Yeah, it's not like you can't move one of them, but you got to get something more than Kiki, who you can kind of find on the waiver wire.
Chris Thompson or Elijah McGuire the rest of the season?
Ooh. Boy, I do like Elijah McGuire, but I would go Chris Thompson. I know he's obviously banged up, but when he's healthy, it's just a little more involved.
It is. Now, it depends on what you think of the Skins the rest of the season, too. With that offensive line banged up, they might start throwing a little bit more, which would be great for Chris Thompson, although we didn't really see it a ton with Bibbs yesterday. I thought that Bibbs would play more, and he just didn't. So that was kind of surprising, but I don't know. Greg Olson or Mark Ingram? Mark Ingram question, banned for life?
Oof. Tight ship around here. I like it.
Yeah, Cam Newton or Pat Mahomes the rest of the season? And the answer is Pat Mahomes, and it's always Pat Mahomes. I love Cam.
The answer is Pat Mahomes. You're right. It pains me to say that. I like Cam a lot. I've been wrong on Mahomes this year. He's been fantastic.
Let's see. We're down here. Doug Baldwin or John Brown rest of the season? It's John Brown. People get so triggered if John Brown has a bad game. People are like, do I drop John Brown? It's like, John Brown's a boom or bust guy, but when he booms, he's spectacular.
Yeah. Stay with Smokey. He's been good this year. And Willie Snead and the gang are not going to take all those targets away. He'll be just fine.
Delvin Cook is on the waiver wire. Do I drop Eckler for him? 100% yes.
Yes.
Yes. Let's see. No, we just answered that one. No questions for this week. Maybe you're late to the chat. I don't know, but there's no starts at questions for this week. Add drops. It's the only thing I'm looking for. Dalvin Cook or Robert Woods rest of the season? I would take Dalvin Cook.
Oof. In a vacuum, I would take Robert Woods.
Here's the problem. Obviously, this depends on your team needs. If you need a receiver, the answer is Robert Woods. But Robert Woods is going to eat every week, but he still has to. There's weeks where he's going to be fourth on the pecking order in that offense. And it's still good enough to be good, but Dalvin Cook, if he's healthy, is going to be the man in Minnesota.
Yeah, no, it's a fair point. We saw this week with the Saints that, Woods played fourth fiddle to all of them, and Gurley wasn't even that effective. If Cook's healthy, you probably want to go that side. I don't know, though, how often that's going to be. And Robert Woods is a damn good receiver in that offense.
John Brown or Dalvin Cook as flex rest of the season? I don't think you should be setting your lineup for week 16 right now. That's a week-by-week thing. I'm going to guess Dalvin Cook. I would rather have Dalvin Cook on my team than John Brown. I like them, but there are circumstances here. What if one of them gets hurt? Are you locked in for the rest of the season? Just
planning ahead too far.
Yeah. I have Connor, Bell, Aaron Jones, Kerryon Johnson. Am I good rest of the season, or do I need to shake things up? I don't know what your fucking record is. Give me a fucking break. All right, these questions are now dropping into stupid. Last one then. Actually, we'll take two because these two are pretty good. Drop Kiki for Enunwa? I wouldn't. I would keep Kiki.
For Enunwa, yeah, I would keep Kiki as well.
Wentz or Cousins rest of the season? I would take Wentz.
I would take Wentz too. Tate is a nice addition.
Trade Tevin Coleman for Keenan Allen? Yes, I would.
Yeah, Keenan Allen's a boss.
Ben Rasa. Follow him on Twitter at JazRaz. DFS. What's going on at Osimo? You probably have 8 shows you got to do today.
Many shows. Yeah, we got from A to B. We're doing Showdown shows. Obviously, we got golf going on. NBA's in full swing. We got Slack, all the good things, articles, projections, behind the paywall. Come on over, sign them up, do a trial, see if you like it. A lot of fun. I think you will enjoy it. So stop on over, watch our show today at 2:30. Me and Andrew Barron.
You and Barron, you guys cannot be separated.
I know. We're conjoined twins at this point. We're a team package, I guess.
How's the college football season going so far?
It's all right. DFS has been pretty good. Betting started off horrible. I'm rallying. Now we got college basketball starts tomorrow. Wasn't ready for that. This is just a crazy time of year. So it's going to be full degenerate mode in the betting world.
Do you feel like you got to pick and choose between, especially if you're playing on DraftKings? I'm just not playing college football. I'm not going to play college basketball. I just frankly don't know enough about it. But I'm not playing. It's like I don't play baseball. I don't play basketball. I feel like I got to stick to golf. I got to stick to football. And I dabble in MMA because I know some sharp MMA guys that I hear them talk. I'm like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. I'll tail what you guys are up to here. But I feel like it's hard to be all in on all these sports. I don't know how people do it.
Yeah, if you're going to do that, you got to streamline your process, no doubt. Like I don't play baseball. I take the summer off besides golf, prepare for football and whatnot. So it's tough with NBA every night. Obviously, that's a full-time thing in itself. Busy.
All right. So, Ben, you can check over at Awesemo.com. And there's the Awesemo YouTube channel, too, with a bunch of content every single day streaming live. And you can go ask them questions, too. And they probably won't tell you to fuck off like I do. But that's me. I'm Pat Mayo. You can follow me at the PME on Twitter if you like to be harassed even more, or on Facebook or on Instagram. All three of those. Please subscribe to the audio podcast, which you can find in the comment section of this video. All the links are right there. Please help us get to 10 million views and listens and downloads by the end of the season. Even if you just watch on YouTube, remember, go subscribe, download, then you can just trash it. Don't need to listen to it. But every download counts, so please go help out the show and do that. Just like smashing the like button before you get out of here. Big help. I will be back Tuesday with golf and Sealy and Garion with the rankings. Wednesday, DraftKings breakdown and the spread pick show. Thursday, we got MMA. Friday, I got injuries and DK ownership. And I'm live again Sunday morning to do this all again with you people. I'll be back Monday morning with Chris Meany, who will be back from Cleveland by that point, too. I want to thank Ben Rasa for coming on and getting out of his element a little bit, talking about some season long. I think he did pretty well, though. I like to see the outsider's perspective on some of these things instead of hearing the same guys go back and forth every single week. But that'll do it. I'm Pat Mayo. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.